There's this strange thing that humans have experienced since the beginning of time. If you are one of the lucky ones, you yourself may have even experienced it. I'm talking about the delightful and wonderful and coveted mystical experience. That moment where the ego dies and the sense of separate selfness melts away into a blissful state of oneness and union with all reality. Plotinus's flight of the alone to the alone, Rumi's moth, which flies into the flame, hoping and begging for it to be reborn so that it can fly into the flame yet again. That silent state of rapture where time itself evaporates and the sheer beauty of existence melts away those boundaries of perception and distinction and selfhood, of mine and yours, when you become simultaneously nothing and everything. That, with a touch of poetry failing to describe it, is the mystical experience, as experienced since the beginning of time until today in every culture, society, language, and land. It seems to be innately and inherently germane to the human brain / condition and experience. And that makes up the beginning of mysticism, the experience of mysticism, the mystical experience, what we're going to call stage 1. But as this non-conceptual and non-perceptual experience is filtered through our mediums of language and thought and conceptualization, it moves into the second stage of mysticism, where we begin to build theories to explain and understand and reconcile that experience with our otherwise everyday life. And we're going to call that second experience mystical thought. Stage 1, mystical experience. Stage 2, mystical thought. So, stage 1 seems hard to deny from all of the cross-cultural and pan-historical evidence passed down to us in the literature and poetry of mysticism, and B, because if you'd like to experience it yourself, you can, either through some hard work to loosen the bounds of the ego and let go of that perception of self, or you can cheat and pop a little hallucinogenic. But if you warm yourself by the fire of the gods, Icarus will watch you fall. If you don't want to go all the way to that extreme, you can gain a glimpse and intimation of that bliss and immortality through the everyday gifts of the gods, in rare moments of rapture induced by the intoxications of love, music, meditation, art, poetry, dance, or even a sunset, or nature in general where time itself dilates and every common sight seems apparelled in celestial light, with the glory and the freshness of a dream, the visionary gleam, where you can see the world in a grain of sand, heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. And C, because we've chucked people in deep states of meditation, unity and bliss, into fMRI scanners, and we see that something out of the ordinary is going on in their brains, in that mysterious grey matter. So, we have good reason to believe that this whole talk of the mystical experience is not just an elaborate hoax, but something is taking place. The question is, what is taking place? And it's here that we move into the aforementioned stage, step 2 of mysticism, the theory and thought, where we as puny humans try to make sense of this powerful, paradoxical, and perplexing experience. Now, as we move from experience into thought, through different modalities, mysticism is expressed, analyzed, and deconstructed in various ways. Perhaps the earliest is done through mythology, where we get the ideas of a death, rebirth, and immortality cycle, which pops up throughout cultures and traditions and is really exciting, being a way to express that feeling of unity and infinity and eternality of the self. We have also the idea that comes from mythology of apotheosis, where the self becomes either one with the divine or becomes God itself. Slightly later, these experiences promote us to start talking in a language of theology. And that moment of union, that mystical experience, depending on its different traditions, sometimes is expressed as poetry, as Theosis in Eastern Christianity, as Unio Mystica, as Dvekut in Judaism, as Fana and Baqa in Sufism in Islam, as Samadhi, Nirvana, Moksha, Satori, Gnosis in its various traditions. And that is taking religious systems and trying to unpack that experience, or perhaps those experiences inspiring this religious language, sometimes theological, sometimes without a theos, without a god at its center, as in Buddhism. Another way which we've tried to make sense of this experience and reconcile it with our everyday world, which it seems to be at odds with, is through philosophy and metaphysics particularly, where we have systems of non-duality, of monism, dialectical monisms, that try to grapple with this experience and bring it into our reality. And these metaphysical systems of mysticism make this one fundamental claim, that despite what we gather from our senses, despite the multiplicity and diversity and distinctions that appear in our phenomenological world, at the base of it, at its core, lies some sense of unity, of interconnectedness or interdependentness that makes all of its parts come together into a whole which is greater than its parts, into a unified entity. Sometimes, again, tagged onto a religious system and called God, sometimes abstracted from that and called the One, such as in Neoplatonism. And most recently, the phenomena of mysticism has also been borrowed to explain and try to give us a philosophy to understand the bizarre and confounding and baffling observations in quantum physics, which I'm not going to claim to have any understanding of. But mysticism, through some authors, has been used to try and explain and has developed a field known today as quantum mysticism. Last but not least, we try and grab that moment and express it in literature and poetry, in art and music. And that consists of the second stage of mysticism: mythology, theology / theosophy, philosophy / metaphysics, science, and the arts. But mysticism culminates in its third phase, and that is after experience and after thought, in its practice, in its action, in its ethic. The mystic, across time and culture, deeply believes in the unity of everything, themselves and the perceived other, and therefore the hunger of the other, the pain of the other, the joy, inspiration, hopes, dreams, and losses of the other are fundamentally not separate from the mystic, him or herself. And the mystic's ethic, therefore, is to live as if everything was truly one and nothing but themselves. And surely this is a radical ethic, and a difficult one. But the idea is to expand the circle of identification from just the self identifying with the self, I am I, to expand that broadly slowly through one's family, community, society, country, until the globe at large, where that all becomes included in the I, in the self. And how would we act if we truly believe that? That would radically change the way that we conduct ourselves in every way of life, from our politics to our economics to our ecology, the world being not separate from us either, the way that we interact with our neighbors, with our enemies. That is the mystic's end goal, and there again we get the soteriological, the messianic, the eschatological, the redemptive side of religion, speaking about an end time, a state of Messiah or a state of Nirvana, which for the mystic means a state where everyone is included and feels and acts as if that oneness is real. So, for me, that is the definition of mysticism. It's unity in experience, unity in thought or conceptualization, working off that experience, and finally, unity in ethic or practice, building off our experiences and theories built on them.